You don't want to be the guy with a great upper body but no legs. Building a great set of quadriceps can solve that issue. In fact, I'd go as far as to say the quads are the most important lower body muscle for men. At the end of the video, I'll crown the 2 best overall quad builders. Let's start with the most popular quadricep exercise, the high bar squat. The high bar squat does many things right. It's highly loadable. Beyond the quads, it trains the glutes and adductors very well. It's sufficiently stable. Performed properly, you stretch the vastae muscles fully under plenty of resistance. However, like all compound movements, the squat won't train the whole quad fully. The quadriceps has 4 heads, the vastae muscles and the rectus femoris. The vastae muscles only serve to extend the knees. While the rectus femoris also extends the knees, it is a biarticular muscle, which also flexes the hips. So, when you're doing a squat, you're actually lengthening the rectus femoris at the hip while shortening it at the knee. This prevents it from being trained effectively. Don't believe me? A study by Kubo and colleagues examined the effects of the squat on muscle hypertrophy of the lower body. The vastae muscles grew well from squatting. However, neither the biarticular rectus femoris or the hamstrings saw much growth at all. This tells us that compound movements are great, but they can't be the be-all end-all for quadricep training. After all, they only train 3 heads of the quadriceps effectively. That's not the only limitation of the squat. It heavily involves the erector spinae and hip extensors, which is both more fatiguing and may cause other muscles to fatigue before the quads do. Likewise, there are a few minor points that knock it back slightly. Walking out and re-racking a heavy squat takes energy away from part of the set that best builds muscle. It's also not the most time-efficient option out there. Having squatted around 450 pounds for multiple sets in the 5 to 10 rep range, loading the bar and warming up for this can take a while. Finally, it's not the easiest exercise to do lengthened partials on. After all, if you truly push close to failure, you'll probably get pinned at the bottom. A spotter or safety arms can help with this, but it remains a limitation. Into AT it goes. The Smith machine squat has seen a real surge in popularity these past few years. In my opinion, it deserves all the glory it is receiving. It has basically all the benefits of a squat, plus some bonus positives. There is no walkout or re-racking. You can safely push to failure and simply re-rack the weight when you do fail. As a result, you can also do lengthened partials safely. Purely for building muscle, I think the Smith machine squat is superior to the regular squat. Into S tier it goes. A great variation of the Smith machine squat is the feet forward Smith machine squat. To perform this movement, simply start with your feet directly under the bar. Take a half step forward. Your hips should remain under the bar at all times. This has the same benefits as the regular Smith machine squat, but this variation will generally allow most people to go a bit deeper, especially if you struggle with ankle mobility. However, it may reduce stretch in the glutes and adductors slightly, making it a double-edged sword. Into low S tier. This movement might remind you of the hack squat, and indeed, while not all gyms have it, the hack squat machine is also a great quadricep builder. Hack squats are incredibly reliable. Nearly every single machine I've ever used has allowed for a full stretch on the quads. Additionally, the biomechanics and lever arms of the exercise also emphasize the quadriceps while reducing the load on the lower back and the hip extensors. This can be helpful if you find your glutes and lower back usually take over. That said, hack squats are usually relatively difficult to do lengthened partials on. Additionally, my positive experience with these machines might be biased due to my height, since I am 6'2". My short king friends have had a bit less luck. High A tier. Scoot over and you'll stumble onto a leg press. This is another phenomenal choice to build your quads, but only if you have the right machine. See, leg press machines are really variable. If you have a bad leg press, it drops into B or even C tier. If you have a good one, it can creep all the way to S tier. Some machines will fold you in half before you can get any meaningful quad stretch, whereas others will make it quite easy to get a full quad stretch. In my experience, 45-degree leg presses are more reliable than the seated, or worse yet, the vertical options. Leg presses are great in general. They reduce spinal loading immensely compared to other compound quadricep exercises. The leg press actually stretches the glutes and adductors very well. The hip position at the start of the rep pre-stretches the glutes and adductors, and you get a maximum stretch at the bottom. This could be a feature or a bug, depending on what you're looking to get out of leg press. Plate loading a leg press can be a pain too. Especially if you're reasonably strong, it can take even more time to get to work than a high bar squat. Overall, the leg press holds a spot in mid-A tier. The final compound quadricep machine is the pendulum squat machine. You don't see this one nearly as often as a hack squat or leg press, hence why you just see me standing around awkwardly for this one. I have a hard time recommending the pendulum squat. First, it still loads your spine a good deal. Due to the moment arms involved, the resistance in the stretch is also lower compared to almost all other quadricep exercises. You can't really perform lengthened partials unless you fancy getting pinned at the bottom. Finally, since it's plate loaded, it's not particularly time efficient either. Into C tier, the pendulum squat goes. This next one is controversial, the front squat. Though some have argued the front squat is terrible for building muscle, I disagree. But don't take it from me. We actually have a study that compared the back squat to the front squat and measured quadricep growth. The results? Both squatting variations grew the quadriceps equally well. So if you say the front squat is terrible for muscle growth, you should probably say the back squat is terrible for muscle growth too, which it isn't.
In fact, the front squat has most of the same benefits as the high bar squat. It's highly loadable, sufficiently stable, and stretches the quadriceps, glutes, and adductors under plenty of resistance.
But it gets better. The front squat will also allow most lifters to get a bit deeper. Nearly everyone can squat a little bit deeper when holding a weight anteriorly versus posteriorly. You can try it out for yourself right now if you have a dumbbell or barbell lying around. That said, the front squat may also involve more spinal extensors compared to the back squat, due to the moment arms imposed upon your back. The front squat is also mad uncomfortable when you first try it. In my experience, it takes at least a month for the exercise to feel bearable. If you hate yourself, you'll love these. Low A tier. Do you want coaching but can't afford the high price tag? Do you have a maddening addiction to tier lists? You'll love Milo. Milo is a coach in your pocket at a fraction of the price of a real coach. Better yet, it's already better than most coaches in my honest opinion. We've been working on it for years. Just like a good tier list, it sorts exercises in terms of effectiveness and recommends exercises to you ranked by effectiveness for your goals and time availability. Myo is launching in December. Go to myodapt.com now to be notified when it launches. Since we started the video with the most popular leg exercise, it's only right we start the post-ad read transition with the most hated leg exercise, the Bulgarian split squat. While most people are getting wound up about how much they hate it, I just can't stop being blown away by how underrated it is. In terms of quadriceps, glute, and adductor loaded stretch, it's just as good as the high bar squat.
But in contrast, it involves minimal actual load, especially if you opt for dumbbells. If you opt for dumbbells, it also becomes incredibly time efficient. It'll take next to no time to set up and warm up for.
You can lengthen partials to failure very, very easily. In fact, I'll go as far as to say these might be the best overall quadricep compound exercise. You'll very likely be able to recover from more volume if you do Bulgarian split squats compared to high bar squats. Honestly, if you don't like squatting, you can straight up replace it with the Bulgarian split squat. Bulgarian split squats go into S tier. In contrast, the version of the exercise without a nationality descriptor is markedly worse. Removing the rear leg support tends to make the movement less stable, and stumbling over becomes more common.
Stretch on the quads is also severely limited, since the rep ends when your knee touches the floor. On the plus side, it doesn't load the back much. But other exercises also achieve that, and are just better choices.
C tier. Hot take, but I think lunges are even worse. While you could improve stability in the split squat by holding onto something, you don't get that option here. Just like for the split squat, you're limiting stretch on the quads, glutes, and adductors.
Finally, you also become that guy. The guy taking up 2/3 of the gym to do a D tier exercise.
There's just better options and nearly no worse ones. This next exercise has become another sleeper pick, in my opinion. The pistol squat. Yes, this will probably bring back memories of that one time I had to train in a hotel room and didn't quite know what the hell I was doing. But in a similar vein as Bulgarian split squats, pistol squats are super time efficient.
Do a few bodyweight squats. Maybe a sissy squat or two, a pistol squat or two, and you can start your walking sets. Just like split squats, the spine is barely being loaded. The only downsides are that pistol squats may not be suitable for some beginners.
If this exercise is too hard or too easy for you, I spent the last 30 seconds showing you a few regressions and progressions you can try. Likewise, keeping your front leg extended can be a slight pain, S tier overall. Fortunately, this next exercise takes care of that issue. The step up is a solid option. Performed properly, it's basically a pistol squat on a raised surface, allowing you to let your non-working leg dangle down. This exercise can have a little bit of a learning curve.
Most beginners will avoid going all the way down, or if they do, they'll use their rear leg to get a jump start, missing out on that important deep stretch. To avoid this, you can dorsiflex the ankle and only softly touch the floor rather than fully resting on. To make these bodyweight movements a bit more stable, just support your body by holding on to something with one hand.
You can use the remaining hand to add load. The single weirdest quadricep exercise I've seen pop up these past few years is the Zercher squat. I just don't get the Zercher squat hype. Yes, the anterior loading usually lets people go a bit deeper, but for the quads, that's about the only good thing going on. Why not just front squat?
Zercher squats are even more uncomfortable than a regular front squat. If you're training for the difficult, I can respect that. But don't expect to build big quads from these.
Deet here. Sticking with anterior loading, the goblet squat is a super popular beginner exercise. It can work okay as an introduction to squatting deep. The anterior loading helps many beginners get used to squatting with more range of motion. The glaring issue with this one is loadability.
Unless you're a ranked beginner, you just can't load it heavy enough to really grow your quads from it. You would need to be able to clean a dumbbell heavy enough to front squat to failure, which is a whole new lift in its own right.
C2. On the other end of the spectrum, the low bar squat is almost too loadable. By shifting the emphasis to the hip extensors slightly and improving the lift's efficiency, you're able to lift more, meaning you need to load up the barbell even more, and it becomes even less time efficient. It does still get you a good stretch on the vasti muscles and hip extensors, but compared to the high bar squat, it's simply lacking.
It can also be extremely uncomfortable, depending on your mobility. It's as though someone tried to design a lower body movement that could simultaneously deliver wrist, elbow, and shoulder discomfort.
Beat here. Let's wrap up the squats. Nobody cares about training legs anyways. The safety bar squat has the same benefits and downsides as the high bar squat. The only real difference is, it's a bit more comfortable. By increasing surface area, it feels a bit nicer than an Olympic barbell feels on your skin. However, you also can't really bail on a safety bar squat. So unless you have a power rack or a competent spotter, you won't be able to safely push as close to failure. Low E2. I didn't have B-roll for the pendulum squat, so don't expect me to get B-roll of this one since it's even harder to come by. The belt squat. This is one of the only bilateral squat exercises that really minimize a load on the spine. You can pretty easily set up any machine to get a full range of motion. The belt squat has all the benefits of the high bar squat, no walkout, but is also a bit hard to push close to failure since you can also get pinned. I can't rank this one too highly since it's so rare I couldn't even find one. If you'd like to send me one for the gym I'm building, feel free. A2. We have 3 exercises to rank before we move on to the 2 best overall quadricep builders. See, so far we focused on compound movements, which mostly train the vasti muscles. But for best overall quadricep growth, we also need an isolation movement, which will both train the vasti muscles and also the rectus femoris. In fact, for that reason, if I had to pick one quadricep exercise for the rest of my life, it would be an isolation movement. The most popular quadricep isolation exercise is the leg extension. Of all the quad isolation exercises, this is probably the worst one. It's missing a ton of stretch, especially for the rectus femoris, which is a big part of why you should use isolation quad exercises in the first place. After all, your hips are flexed to around 90 degrees, and your knees max out around 90 to 110 degrees of knee flexion, which misses around 55 to 70 degrees of stretch. Now that I've said that, I can already see you typing out your comment from all the way over here in this undisclosed location. But Milo, could you stop talking about the stretch? You're sounding like a broken record. Nah, I won't. For one, science communication is my job. For 2, this is what I did my PhD on, so it feels right to speak on it. For 3, the quadriceps is literally the muscle most of the research on the stretch is built on. I'll keep it brief since I've spoken about this at length, yes, pun intended. A study by Pedrosa and colleagues compared bottom half partials to top half partials to a full range of motion in the leg extension. The group performing the bottom half partials saw the best growth pretty much across the board, in the rectus femoris and the vas lateralis. It's almost like the stretch is important. Likewise, a pre-printed study by our own research group, headed by Stian Larsen in Norway, found that extending the hips in the leg extension from 90 to 40 degrees of hip flexion increased rectus femoris growth by between 50 to 170%, depending on the site measured. Since extending the hips stretches the rectus femoris more, this makes sense.
Look, the leg extension just doesn't offer a ton of bang for buck, even as far as quadricep isolation exercises go. They're fine if you need to minimize spinal loading at all costs, or if you're doing super high reps, or if you just feel like sitting down.
But meh. C tier. Let's wrap things up with 2 better exercises that I've also spoken about at length, the sissy squat and the reverse Nordic curl. Both of these exercises extend the hips fully, providing a better rectus femoris stretch, which will likely boost growth as per the study by Larsen and colleagues.
Likewise, while the leg extension maxes out at around 110 degrees of knee flexion at the most, The reverse Nordic curl and sissy squat let you get to a full 160 or so degrees of knee flexion, maximizing stretch on all four heads of the quadriceps. They're also both quadricep isolation exercises, meaning nothing else can really give out first. Just like for pistol squats, step-ups, and the like, you use one hand to hold onto something and the other to load the movement if required.
I also showed you a couple of ways to progress and regress these movements over the past minute. The reverse Nordic curl is inherently a lengthened partial. You never fully extend the knees after all, and it places a bit more resistance in the stretch. So, reverse Nordic curl goes to the tippity top, and the sissy squat is a close second, high S tier. I can't spell rascal apparel without S tier either. Don't quote me on that. The most durable, comfortable, and stylish clothing in the game. I've never had a single of their pieces wear down on me. rascalapparel.com, use code WOLF at checkout for 10% off, get swaggy, and support your boy in the process. The two best quad builders, one isolation exercise, one compound exercise, are the reverse Nordic curl and the Bulgarian split squat. Dr. Milo Wolf, bulbous quads. Until next time.